On Motor Week this week, the new Daewoo that's all their own, computer power behind Ford's new models, and this week's automotive news.
Well, what do you reckon is the most successful vehicle in that kind of Mercedes C-Class, BMW 3 Series, Audi A4 sector? The most successful vehicle of its type is the Audi A4, and they're going one better by introducing the S4 version, which you can see before you now. Looks very similar, of course, to the A4, as you'd expect, but it's been tweaked, lowered suspension, nice big fat 17-inch wheels, that lovely chrome and colour-coded grille there, which gives it a very sporty feel. Lots of changes inside, and of course that V6 engine under the bonnet, and how can we forget it? That four-wheel drive system that is not only performance orientated, but of course also helps the safety of the drivers. And they really are racing cars for the road. I mean, that's a term that's used very, very often, but I think all you've got to do is look at the experience that Audi have built up over the years, and particularly in the last couple of years in the British Touring Car Championship, to see that their racing pedigree is second to none. And they've learned an awful lot from that racing experience and incorporated some of what they've learned onto these fabulous road cars. Let's see what they drive like. Decided to hit the road in the estate version of the Audi S4. It's got something like 265 horsepower on tap, and that means a top speed of around about 250 kph. Ooh. In old money, that means something of the order of 150 miles an hour, but it's all academic, forget all that. This car will do twice the legal speed limit, but like I say, it's academic because the engine is actually governed. They don't actually allow this vehicle to go as fast as it naturally wants to. They curb it for reasons of social conscience, I think is the term that they use at Audi. And it's just as well that they do have a social conscience, because this thing, well, cruise missile, rocket for the road, you know, all the old cliches spring to mind. It really does. I mean, it's frighteningly quick. It's got 4 airbags. That doesn't mean 2 in the front and 2 in the back. That means 4 airbags for the 2 front seat occupants, the driver and the passenger. We're also talking about a 4-wheel drive system, of course, and Audi prefer not to use that term 4-wheel drive. In fact, they don't like the term 4-wheel drive. They prefer the term quattro. Every time you see that word quattro after the name Audi, whatever it is, that means 4-wheel drive, basically. Why they can't just call it 4-wheel drive like everyone else, I don't know. I suppose it dates back to those rally days when, of course, quattros ruled the roost in world rallying. The other thing in this car is this concert surround sound system they have. Concert-like stereo, well, concert-like, I'm not so sure about that. The other thing they keep talking about, as if it's a great selling point for this car, is the automatic climate control system. Now, I can only assume this car is not fitted with that said system, because no matter what we've done to actually try and cool the cabin down in this very, very palatial, very, very plush and very, very comfortable Audi S4 Avant, I mean, it doesn't matter what we do, we're still baking hot in here. We do have a rather nice sunroof with a very, very easy mechanism to open and close the sunroof. But the heating control, that's another story. We're going to have to make inquiries about that when we get back to base. This is just about as good as it gets. 37,500, 36.5, or to be precise, 36,600 pounds on the road for the saloon version, with all the same fixtures and fittings that I've talked about. Hell of a car, hell of a performance, and this is very nice. This is a lovely touch, and I take my hat off to Audi for doing it. Actually, they're saying that everybody who buys an S4, S6, S8, whatever, anything with S as a prefix in the Audi range, comes with the free Audi driving course. And if you saw the program a few weeks ago, you would have known that I've done that course, and it's a hell of a course. That's worth about £400, and they're chucking that in with the asking price. And let me tell you, it's a course you'll enjoy. The only little problem you have is you need 30 odd grand to buy one of these little things. Well, Len Hunt, you're the managing director of Audi UK. You've got to sell these cars. What's the sales pitch? Why would anybody buy these cars instead of maybe a rival from BMW or Mercedes, if I'm allowed to mention those horrible names?
Well, absolutely. They're strong competitors in the marketplace, whereas our good friends at BMW tend to go for a more ultimate driving machine. We tend to be more sort of modern, innovative, design, style-led, and offer a different proposition totally.
People, I think, are pretty impressed with BMW quality. People casting their mind back a couple of decades, 3 decades, might have a little doubt or two about Audi quality, but I'm sure you've got a strong message for them.
A great strong message. I mean, seeing the investment that's going on, and I see it frequently in Audi, the absolute total commitment to quality is there to be seen. And for those people that maybe have a perception of it 2 to 3 decades ago, my strong advice is take a test drive now.
Now, it's a shame in a way that you've launched these stunningly good S4s, because that's put to the background a little bit, a car that deserves to be in the limelight in its own right, and that's your TDI version of the A4, which you're also launching here today. Now, I've got to tell you, I've just been out on the Autobahn for a quick blast in one, and I refused to believe, as we were tooling along at 120 miles an hour, I was actually driving a diesel car. It just didn't feel like a diesel, didn't sound like a diesel. I mean, that seems like a hell of a motor car.
It is, and it's a part of the range that we've sort of seen growing in its importance. We saw the 110 horsepower A4 TDI come through, and have seen the 110 horsepower A3. Virtually a sports car. I think it's not a lot of people realise that the A3 with the 110 horsepower is it only got 5 horsepower less than the original Golf GTI. But now we see this new development, the V6 TDI, and really giving high performance turbo diesel injection models, which is a feature of the Audi range, because we always like to sort of lead on technology, hence the meaning Vorsprung durch Technik.
I don't think it's a well-known fact, but Ford actually has a greater amount of computer processing capability, more than any other auto manufacturer, and certainly only maybe a handful of governments and other institutions have anywhere near our capability.
Computer power doesn't just help operations in the dealership, the office and on the shop floor. Ford's global computer integration program, using a battery of super machines, is allowing computers across research, engineering and manufacturing to suppliers and information management to communicate with one another in a common language. With this system, Ford can go from design concept to manufacturing work completely on computer screens. And Ford's Puma is a visible sign of this computer concentration. Traditionally, numerous clay models are built to assess the design concept of any new vehicle, but because this car was rendered almost completely on the computer screen, only one single clay was needed to bring it to the design approval stage, faster and less expensive.
Between the design theme and the final product, you can say that the design concept has not been changed. In detail, just very small details, but the general concept is there, and this is what we are very happy about and very proud of.
Computer-aided design, or CAD, is now an established tool in the automotive designer's armory. The traditional practice of rendering early sketches and colored drawings on paper has been replaced by the ability to visualize a three-dimensional and moving form, plus the ability to make instant changes or additions as the concept develops.
In the old process, the nature was that you had sometimes more designers working on one model. Now really you're giving each designer the opportunity to create his own model and to be very consistent then in the design.
The CAD system isn't meant to compromise or supersede any designer's ability. It's a tool to aid creative skills.
The design process changed in the last 10 years quite a lot, very radically. And I think we can expect to be also quite more radical in the next 10 years.
Under Ford's Global Computer Integration Program, all involved in the vehicle's development will have access to the same database. Under the system already in place, those who style the body and those who devise the mechanicals that go into it share the resource. Using this computer muscle, the product component engineers are able to develop the necessary components to suit that application speedily and efficiently. In the past, numerous prototypes were needed for assessment and physical testing. Under this system, much of the stress analysis is carried out using computer power, with possible weaknesses identified and corrected before the first component is ever produced in metal. Ford also uses computers to design, engineer, and even crash test a vehicle before the company builds its first prototype. About 70% of the crash tests are now carried out on computer, providing more complete and accurate information to ensure a vehicle's crashworthiness as well as to develop future safety systems. Simulated crash tests like these require enormous computer resources, but the results justify the commitment. This is one of the world's most advanced 5-axis milling machines. A team operate and program these machines that transfer computer images into solid models in foam, synthetic wood, or traditional clay.
With this milling machine, we're able to machine models in either clay or in a harder material, like the material looking at here, in a variety of sizes, from something as small as this little tiny model, which illustrates the precision of the machine, through to a scale model like this, up to a full-size vehicle.
And no, this is not a new computer game. Ford is the first car manufacturer to use computer simulations to design its vehicle final assembly processes. As manufacturing engineers work alongside project design engineers and use the same computer images of vehicle components and facilities, assembly techniques can now be developed at the same time components are designed. Analysis of past practice shows that this virtual factory not only makes possible the effective reuse of expensive machinery and achieves less changes, but results in processes designed faster and at lower costs.
There are known processes that we have identified that tend to have ergonomic concerns in the past, and we're kind of using that as a best practice to direct our efforts that we're putting into the simulation.
Computer simulations are used here to ensure that, for example, when an operator is assembling a door panel, he or she can complete the work without strain or poor results.
So the idea was to evaluate whether it was feasible for an operator to firstly install the door module assembly, and secondly to take the latch part of the assembly, feed it through the door, and with the other hand be able to secure the latch assembly using a power tool. We need to become more analytical, and these tools give us that analytical capability early in the program without having to wait for physical prototypes to be available much later in the program.
After the break, Ian Royle drives the new Daewoo Leganza.
When Daewoo cars first arrived on our shores a few years ago, we were a bit confused. First of all, we'd never heard of Daewoo before, and secondly, the so-called new Daewoo cars were in fact old Astras that we'd seen many times before. Prices were cheap, the warranty was good, and you bought your car not from a dealer but from a hassle-free showroom. Well, now Daewoo are about to launch 3 new models, the Lanos, the Nubira, and this, the top-of-the-range Leganza. The Leganza is the flagship of the Daewoo range. It's styled by Giugiaro's Ital design. Is it affordable? Well, yes it is. Prices start at £13,795 for the SX and £14,995 for the all-singing, all-dancing, top-of-the-range CDX. You get your 3-year warranty, including AA cover, and you get 3 years free servicing, including parts and labour. Sounds like a great package. The power plant of the Leganza is a 2-litre 4-cylinder which produces 132 brake horsepower. Gives a top speed for the manual of 128 miles an hour, 0 to 60 times in a fairly respectable 10 seconds, and fuel economy pretty good with a combined figure of about 30 miles per gallon. The interior of the car is quite well designed. The driving position is good, everything is at hand, the leather trim is quite nice as well. The one thing I don't like is the wood trim. If you're going to put wood trim in a car, I always feel make sure it's good wood. And to be honest, this is very plasticky wood and doesn't look great in this car. Everything else though feels and looks fine. The engine is perhaps a little harsh sounding. Maybe 132 brake horsepower is not quite enough power for this 2-litre engine. Perhaps that could be upped a bit. It does sound a little harsh when you rev it hard, but other than that, this is a fine car and will get you quite nicely from A to B.
We're looking at buyers of possibly Mondeos, Charismas, that sort of market. We expect it to do quite well in fleets. It's a very well equipped car for the price. We pioneered the total customer care package, and with the move into our new models, the now famous Daewoo package still stands. You still get 3 years free servicing, including all parts and labour, even wearing parts. You still get 3 years AA cover. You still get a 3-year warranty.
Now, there's no doubt that Daewoo are a really happening car manufacturer, and they want to make an even bigger impact in the UK with the launch of their new models. They're also just about to launch a rather unique offer. They're going to give out 100 cars each to customers for them to test for a year completely free of charge. They want to know their likes and dislikes, how they get on with the car, and Daewoo will put together that research and hopefully produce even better Daewoo cars in the future. And it really is true, that car you get, if you're lucky enough to be one of those 100 customers, will be completely free of charge. All you do is pay for the petrol and put it in the tank. Now, rear seat passengers are given a surprising amount of room for a car of this size. There's plenty of leg room. I'm 6 foot, and even with the driver's seat pushed fairly well back, there's plenty of space for me. And indeed, headroom is very good. The boot is good at the back. And this CDX model has the leather trim, which actually looks and feels very good. So, what are my final impressions of the new Daewoo Leganza? Well, it's certainly a very adequate car. It's not a car that's going to set the world on fire, and if you're looking for a driver's car, then perhaps this isn't for you. But remember, at the price of the Leganza, £14,000 to £15,000, it should certainly be on your shopping list. It's pitched up against the Ford Mondeo, the Peugeot 406 and the VW Passat, to name just a few. What they don't come with, though, is the 3-year warranty and the 3 years free servicing, including parts and labour. And that's certainly something that you should take into account when buying a new car.
I bumped into a journalistic colleague from, let's say, mainland Europe the other day. And he was telling me how he came to Britain recently, driving on holiday here. And he was appalled by all the speed cameras. He said he's got those speed cameras in his country too. So they're not called speed cameras, they're called cash counters. I didn't really know what he meant. I thought he was struggling with his English, but he explained himself eloquently enough actually when he went into a bit more detail. He was explaining they've got nothing to do with stopping speeding drivers. They've got everything to do with raking in money. That's why they're cash counters. Every time the gun goes off, thank you very much, ding, another 50 quid or whatever in the kitty for the government or the privatised industries that are putting the cameras up. And you won't find me defending for 1 minute a motorist who's speeding inappropriately. You won't for 1 minute find me complaining if somebody who's speeding excessively in the wrong circumstances. You won't find me offering him an ounce of sympathy, even if he loses his licence and his livelihood. But where you will find me complaining is when I see a motorist who's driving down a dual carriageway, maybe a 2 or 3 lane dual carriageway, and he sees a 50 mile per hour sign. He's got trucks on his bumper, he's got taxis on his bumper, they're almost nudging him along to go faster, and he's desperately trying to stick within the speed limit. And the speed limit is quite simply too low. Whoever decided that should be a 50 mile an hour speed limit got it wrong. And what is there so often in those locations? There's a speed camera there. It's not there to enforce a 50 mile an hour speed limit because it's essential that it's imperative that people adhere to that 50 mile per hour speed limit. It's there as a cash counter. It's there to rake in money. And I'm just staggered really that the public put up with it, that the motoring associations put up with it. There's even evidence now that even if speed cameras work and that they do reduce speed, there's evidence that in America, for example, accidents have gone up, have actually increased after the speed cameras have been installed. And frankly, I'm not surprised, because I now see a regular pattern. I see people driving along at maybe 60, 70 mile an hour on a 3-lane dual carriageway road, because they know that that's just about the right and appropriate speed to go on that road. And it's safe to do that speed on that road. And they know the speed camera is looming, and they know that they've got to do 50 through there, otherwise there's a good chance they'll get an endorsement and a fine. So they happily chug along at 60, 70. They see the speed limit, the speed camera. They effectively do an emergency stop. They brake heavily, go through the speed camera for a few yards, and then pick up on their 60, 70 speed again. So it's not stopping speeding, it's stopping people speeding over those few feet or few yards where the speed camera can be seen. It doesn't stop them before from speeding, it doesn't stop them afterwards.
It's been a sad week for Toyota's Burnston plant in Derbyshire, as the decision to expand has gone in favour of building in France instead. Speculation had been around for months that Toyota would not invest further in the UK after their warnings that they disapproved of Britain opting out of the European single currency mechanism. However, the existing workers in Derbyshire should be glad that they're making the new Avensis, which has been very favourably received. The Avensis replaces the Carina, which has been discontinued after 26 years. Audi have given the green light to this small aluminium-bodied car to be built alongside the A8. Having whetted our appetite for such a car with the AL2 concept, the new car is aimed to achieve 90+ miles per gallon, and 50,000 a year are planned for production. Although unlikely to have much beyond its aluminium space frame and body construction in common with the AL2 concept, we look forward to seeing the new car, which is due in 1999. The thought of a Proton racer may not excite you, but this 1.8-litre coupe racer will be part of a 10-race one-make series next year. The aim is to create a very cheap way into motor racing, as well as encouraging more women onto the grid. Protosport of Warrington will supply these 155 brake horsepower races, fully prepared for £17,800 plus VAT. Potential entrants could compete for a minimum of £4,500 a season. So if the cost of racing has put you off taking the plunge, this is maybe the series you've been waiting for. Next week on Motor Week, an exclusive drive of a new limousine that is rivaling the likes of Mercedes and Jaguar, and it's from the Korean Kia company.